There is something happening in your backyard that most people never notice. Every morning, a bird lands on the same fence post, the same tree branch, or the same feeder. It looks around for danger, checks the sky, studies the ground, and then, for just a second, looks directly at you. You probably think it is simply watching for movement. You would be wrong. Scientists have discovered that some of the most common backyard birds can recognize individual human faces and remember them for years. Not only that, they can tell the difference between a person who has helped them and one who has threatened them. Right now, there may be birds in your yard that know exactly who you are, not because they understand people the way we understand each other, but because their survival depends on remembering every creature that enters their world. Welcome back to Backyard Bird Word. Today, we are going to uncover one of the strangest abilities hidden in plain sight. You will discover which backyard birds have the best memories, how they recognize individual humans, why some birds warn others about dangerous people, and what happens when an entire flock decides whether you can be trusted. Stay until the end, because the last discovery suggests that some birds may have been quietly watching and learning about you for much longer than you ever imagined. It begins with a crow. Not because the crow is the friendliest bird, not because it is the smartest, but because one remarkable experiment revealed something that completely changed the way scientists think about the minds of birds. And once you hear what happened, you may never walk through your backyard the same way again. The discovery that birds can recognize human faces did not happen by accident. It began with a simple experiment that produced an astonishing result. Researchers put on realistic masks and walked through a neighborhood where crows were nesting. One mask belonged to a person who gently captured and released a few birds for research. The other belonged to someone who never bothered them at all. At first, only the captured crows reacted. They called loudly, circled overhead, and followed the dangerous face from tree to tree. The harmless face was almost completely ignored. That alone was remarkable. But what happened next surprised the scientists even more. Weeks passed, then months. The same masked person returned, and crows that had never been captured joined the alarm calls. Young birds, born after the experiment had begun, seemed to know which face could not be trusted. Somehow, the information had spread. The birds were teaching each other. A crow that spots danger does not simply protect itself. It warns its family, its mate, and even neighboring flocks. One bird's bad experience can become the knowledge of an entire community. And if crows can share information about human faces, it raises an unsettling question. When a bird in your backyard watches you every morning, is it deciding for itself whether you are safe, or has another bird already told it your story? Some backyard birds take this remarkable ability even further. They do not simply recognize people, they remember kindness. If you have ever filled a bird feeder at the same time each morning, you may have noticed something strange. At first, the birds stay high in the trees, waiting for you to leave. A few weeks later, they perch closer. A month later, they may land before you have even walked away. That is not hunger alone. Studies of chickadees, jays, and crows suggest that birds constantly learn from repeated experiences. A person who moves slowly, provides food, and never causes harm becomes part of the landscape of safety. The bird's brain stores those encounters and compares them to every new one. But trust works both ways. A single frightening event can undo weeks of peaceful visits. Chasing a bird from the garden or startling a nesting pair may cause them to avoid the area for days. Some species even increase their alarm calls when they see someone they associate with danger. To a backyard bird, every human has a reputation. And that reputation may not belong to just one bird. The longer scientists study these small feathered neighbors, the more evidence they find that information about safe and dangerous people can spread through an entire community. Which leads to an even stranger question. Can birds actually talk about us? The answer, in a way, is yes. When a bird discovers danger, it rarely keeps that information to itself. Instead, it gives a sharp warning call that can spread through the trees in seconds. To human ears, it may sound like simple chirping. To other birds, it carries a surprisingly detailed message. A chickadee, for example, changes the number of notes in its alarm call depending on the level of danger. A small, fast hawk may trigger a longer, more urgent warning than a larger predator that is easier to escape. Other birds nearby listen carefully, even if they belong to different species. Your backyard is filled with these conversations every day. A robin may react to a blue jay's alarm. Sparrows may hide because a chickadee spotted trouble. Squirrels sometimes respond to bird warnings, and birds occasionally pay attention to squirrel alarms in return. It is a neighborhood watch that has been operating for millions of years. Now imagine what happens when the danger is not a hawk or a cat, but a human walking across the lawn. One bird notices, another repeats the warning. Soon, several pairs of eyes are following every movement you make. You may think you are simply walking through your backyard, but the birds could be announcing your arrival to everyone else. And as scientists have discovered, some birds are not just listening to these messages. They are making decisions because of them. The most surprising part of this story is that birds do not make these decisions alone. In many species, the knowledge of one bird can become the knowledge of an entire flock. Young birds spend their first months watching experienced adults. They learn where to find food, where to build nests, and which parts of the neighborhood are safe to visit. But they also learn something else. They learn who to trust. A young blue jay following its parents may discover that one backyard always has fresh water and seed, while another is home to a noisy dog that never stops chasing birds. A chickadee joining its winter flock pays attention to the reactions of older birds. If the group suddenly falls silent or disappears into the trees, the younger birds do the same without asking why. This kind of social learning saves lives. Instead of making every mistake for themselves, birds can benefit from the experiences of others. One bird's discovery becomes the wisdom of the whole community. That means the birds visiting your feeder today may already know something about your yard before they ever land. They may know it is safe. They may know it offers food through the winter. They may even know that the person who lives there has never caused them harm. And perhaps that is why some birds seem so comfortable around certain people. Because, long before you noticed them, they had already been quietly learning about you. So the next time you step into your backyard and notice a bird watching you from a nearby branch, take a moment before you walk away. That tiny creature may know far more about you than you realize. It may remember the mornings you filled the feeder during the winter when food was scarce. It may recognize the sound of your footsteps or the color of the jacket you always wear. It may have learned that your garden is a place where danger is rare and fresh water can always be found. And it may not have learned those things alone. Some of that knowledge could have been passed from parent to chick, from mate to mate, or from one flock to another, creating a quiet network of information stretching across your neighborhood. Long before you notice the birds in your yard, they may have been quietly observing you, comparing your actions, and deciding whether you belonged in their world. Perhaps that is the real secret of backyard birds. We think we are the ones watching them. We hang feeders outside our windows. We build bird baths and plant flowers to attract them. We learn their names and listen for their songs in the morning. But all this time, they may have been watching us just as carefully. Every kind gesture, every sudden movement, every season that comes and goes. To a bird, a human is not just part of the background. We are another animal sharing the same space, another neighbor whose behavior can mean safety or danger. Tomorrow morning, when you walk outside with your coffee and hear the familiar songs from the trees, look up for a second. Somewhere in the branches, a pair of bright eyes may already be looking back. And the bird staring at you might not be wondering who you are. It might already know